Welcome to the webinar dealing with soil contaminants on construction sites. Our guest speaker today is Sonia Shukri, CEO of Interlink Business Management Inc. and Global Biocoal Energy Inc. The webinar is hosted by the Earth Exchange Forum, a nonprofit organization based in Vancouver, Canada, and our goal is to bring awareness to the material waste and diminishing resources in the earth-moving sector, and our mission is to enhance communication, facilitate collaboration, and encourage the adoption of a circular economy. Now, today's webinar is sponsored by PhilConnect, the dirt exchange marketplace for the construction and landscaping industry. PhilConnect is on a mission to encourage sustainability by enhancing industry collaboration and reuse of excavated and dredged material. Now, our objective here today is to understand the implications of contaminated soil, how to determine the level of contamination, contaminated soil cleanup options, and best practices to preserve the environment and stay compliant. And at the end, we're going to open it up for some Q&A. And that's why we're super excited to have here with us today Sonia Shukri. Sonia is an entrepreneurial chief executive with domestic and international experience in strategic planning, business development, corporate finance, and global operations. She has served over 30 years in a multi-industry consortium in different continents and industries, including soil remediation, thermal oxidizer treatment, international banking and companies, and diplomatic corps. Her company focuses today on creating a sustainable biofuel by converting any wastewood fiber from forestry operations, biomass, into biocoal, serving power plants to phase out coal, and also biochar, terra preta to improve the fertility of the soil. On the call with us today, we also have Mana Arabi, CEO and co-founder of PhilConnect and a civil engineer with over 20 years experience in the North American construction industry, as well as myself, Huwaida Khater, and I will be your moderator. Now, I'll pass over the presentation to you, Sonia, so please go ahead.
Thank you, Huwaida, for the introduction, and good afternoon to all of you. It is a pleasure to be with you today and with your audience, and thank you for the invite. I should say that I'm extremely proud with PhilConnect mission, who are ensuring soil is cleaned up and properly recycled and reused. Soil has always been an essential element for us, next, of course, to water and air. We grow our food in it, we raise our cattle on it, it touches our water table, kids play with it, and that's why we are determined to keep it clean. What is soil contamination? All contaminants in soil, we all know, are meant either from industrial, military, or agriculture. We are using certain chemical products that leak into our soil. For example, we have the gas station, they have the tanks. If the tank is erupted, it leaches into the soil, which can reach our groundwater as well. There are many technology in the market today, and many other has been developed since I was working with the soil remediation over the years to treat this type of contaminant. This is kind of a slide we have put together just to show the type of contaminants and where it comes from, or how we can identify it. It does not include, of course, nuclear waste, because that need totally different treatment. Each type of this contaminant would require a different type of cleaning up process to clean our soil. Why we should care about our soil? The contaminant shown on the previous slide have serious effect on human. It can be for difficult breathing, it can affect our lung, could have problem with it, skin irritation, and can conclude even to cancer. Before you get involved in any other site that you are going to work on it, you will have to know the history of the site. What is the industry that has been operating on that site? And it's not only that, you should reach to next site as well. They are using a different other technology or different operation that possibly has leaked into that site. So a lot of testing should be conducted to know the history of everyone. First of all, the first things normally we conduct once we identified a site or the owner will reach up to us, we have to send a team of engineers, and we are using an independent labs in order to conduct all the proper testing. The testing should take place not only from the surface. It should go in many deep as you can go, many corner a different area from the site in order to determine the ppm. ppm are part per million, and that's how we identify the level of contaminant. This is another slide we put together to show the level of contamination from low to hazardous, and how we can treat each one depends on the type of contaminant. It gives you just a kind of an idea. Once the soil is analyzed, we can figure out the level of contamination, and the proper treatment should take place. If you look at the last button of it, this is some of the type of the treatment should be we have identified them in order to treat those contaminants. All right, I'm gonna go mostly give you a quick background about many different slides, different technology, and what we are using once we are on the site and we know what the type of contaminants are. If we are dealing, for example, with hazardous waste, which I was involved into this type of technology for a couple of decades actually, most of the time, if it is extremely contaminated, hazardous waste, most of the time it has to be excavated and trucking and sent to the facility for disposal and treatment. And again, it depends on the level of the contaminant and the type of contamination. All right, here comes PhilConnect with its service that gives us the perfect tool to connect from to. Clean soil is needed for various industry, construction, the 6 inches soil tipping we use normally into the municipal waste landfill. PhilConnect, you can get it on your mobile, very easy. We have philconnect.com, and I encourage everybody to use it. This is one of the technology I was speaking about. It's called soil blending. If the contaminant is not extremely high, so we can mix the soil with clean soil to reduce the level of contaminant and to meet the local guideline and acceptance of the government or Ministry of Environment, or we call in United States the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency. Bioremediation. Bioremediation, it is a type of process to degrade and transform or remove the contaminant from the soil. The process relies on bacteria, fungi, and different other plants to alter the contaminant in the soil. These organisms carry out their normal life function. So you can even use something called, which I put it in the bottom of the slide, biochar, which re-nurtures as well the soil after treatment, or the terra preta. This is the soil washing. I do believe next month PhilConnect is hosting a specialist into soil washing. He can give you more information about it. It is a type of process by dissolving them into wash solution, mostly is a chemical, and by contracting them into a smaller volume of soil through particular size separation, gravity separation, and attributing scrubbing. That technology has many interesting aspects, and it could be probably explained more in detail next month if one of the audience are involved in this technology. The capping. This is another technology. It's not technology. When I dealt with the EPA in the United States, they have a big size of site that sometimes they cannot remove millions of tons. So what they would do a technology was called capping. They excavate it they go under the soil and put a lining, and that lining prevent to leaching. But this type of technology is very costly, and it has to be monitored for lifetime. It includes drainage and constant testing. Depends how many times they have to do it. It can even require a relining if the lining is not it doesn't hold more than 20 years. All of this in order to prevent leaching in our groundwater. Most of the sites normally they have made it with military sites, which are enormous quantity of soil are involved. Thermal oxidizer, this is the most recommended treatment for hazardous waste. It eliminates totally the contaminant. Soil is excavated and shipped to the facility. That's most the same. The thermal oxidizer, it removes the heavy and hazardous organic waste from soil, sludge or sediment by heating the VOC to high temperature, 1000 degrees or above. The oxidization process breaks down the harmful particulate into carbon dioxide and water. It has an air pollution control system that decomposes the hazardous waste, and all what it comes out of the stack will be H2O. So I would say this is quite expensive as a technology, but if they are specialized only on soil, you can have them technology soil and liquid at the same time. But if they are only in soil, that's the price will be very reasonable. Trucking. When we are talking about excavating and shipping to the site, we are using trucking, train, or barges. It depends where the location of the site vis-a-vis the final treatment. We use a liner into our trucking or our train car in order to prevent them from getting contaminated. All of this lining, normally it gets sealed after the truck is filled, and once it gets to the site, it goes with the soil into the unit for treatment. So it decomposes with it, and leaving the truck or the barge or train pretty clean. This is a diagram I have put together a while ago. It's showing the difference between incineration. We have two types of them. We have a low temperature and high temperature incineration. I put down there some of the contaminants on the baseline, which they are representing by bars. And on the vertical line, you do have, for example, the temperature which it needs to be treated. So some sites you go to and you find that they don't want to use high temperature, but they insisted to have a low temperature incineration, which it can be used on the site or outside or off site. So they will treat it, and then they realize, if you look at the two red lines, that's how the treatment are. If you look at that, you will find the low temperature sometimes does not clean. They may clean some of the low spots, but will never clean up the entire hazardous waste. So they will have to put it several times in order to reprocess it multiple time, or they would have to use the high temperature incineration, what we call it thermal oxidizer, because lots of people doesn't like the word incineration. All right, this is typical. You all, if you are from Vancouver, we all know familiar with the site. It is owned by the government. Some treatment have been done on that site 30 years ago for multiple hot spots on the site. The site has been left without any development for years to date, with low contaminant. I would assume that have been probably evaporated by now. And I think the government are looking today into type of developing the site. If the site is not cleaned up, or for example, if we take a gas station we all know it has a tank, and the tank has to be removed and the soil has to be cleaned, because we don't know if it does have any leach in our soil, yes or no. Excuse me. So they leave it there, like this picture and nothing going on onto it, and which represent a hazardous because some kids can run into this type of site. Or I would go to the next slide, please. Or the government will make a community garden, which everybody around the gas station or that site, they will go and plant their own vegetation, and they can enjoy it as much as they could till the cleanup take place, and then it will have a next development once the fund is available. I would say I do always highly recommend, when you are dealing with any contaminated soil or site, you always have to consult with your local government website, or you speak to them directly. Just ask all the necessary questions you need to have an answer for. Always consult with your local professional, which before signing any agreement or any contract, to get all the information necessary about the site. Because once you get the site on your hand, it will be extremely difficult that you can get out of it. So I would hope that we all will remain safe and make sure that our soil is clean. Thank you so much, Waida, and I can take any question.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Sonia, for walking us through an overview. I'll please ask before we open it up for everyone for the questions, because I'm sure we have some people on the call that are also experts in that area, so each one in their own area of expertise. I wanted to first invite Mana Arabi, because CEO of PhilConnect, to share some of her questions first, and then we'll open it up. Mana, do you have some questions you'd like to start with?
Thank you so much, Sonia. That was very informative. You touched on most of the questions I had, but a couple more is how do we decide what is the best treatment method for a contaminated site? I know you had a chart that based on the level of contamination, different treatment, but is that the only way, or there's more into it?
Of course, any type of treatment, you will have to have two specific things you have to identify: the type of contaminant in the soil, and second, the level of contamination. With these two items, from here you can have a clear idea, first, which type of treatment is adequate to be applied. Some company choose to use different treatment than it is recommended to them to avoid high cost for cleaning up. Definitely it's not going to work. You have to take the word from a professional company, but they will lose time and funding spent on trying to clean the site when instead of using an appropriate technology from the beginning.
And then what if you're a private, property developer, and you don't have the money to clean up the site? What do you do with that in that situation?
Most of the time when I dealt with contaminated site, it was in United States. Thanks God that Canada is pretty clean. We don't get too much hazardous waste in our country. So what I dealt a lot with EPA, Environmental Protection Agency in United States. So what they will do, they identify all sites if they are contaminated. They will ask, or they force the owner to clean it up. If they do not clean it up, or they don't have the resources to clean it up, which a lot of them don't, the EPA would take the site away from them. They put it on their contaminated list website, which you can get access on it, very easy to identify where are all these contaminated lists. A site, I do apologize. And then they clean it up, they pay for it, and once it's done, it becomes their ownership, of course, and then they will sell it to any development or different industry to operate on the site. I'm not familiar what the procedure will be in Canada if we are facing something like that. Many gas station has closed down. For example, as I see, I lived in downtown core, and the site has been remain empty. I'm not sure if the government are using the same procedure like United States, or they do have different procedures that can be explored more with the Ministry of Environment.
Yeah, I wonder what is the process here. And then, can you tell us how you were involved in some of Canada's environmental law changes?
In the old time, now we do have something called British Columbia Environmental Industry Association. In the past, when we incorporated that company with the company I used to work before, it used to be called Canadian Environmental Industrial Association. And that a few years ago, they have divided by province. So every province has the same association. They made it personalized to maybe to fit every province, as regulation differ from state to state, from province to a province. So they thought that would be most appropriate. But anyway, when we were all as a Canadian one, in the old time, the American used to send all their hazardous waste, contaminated soil to Canada. They cross the border. Once it is crossing the border into Canada, they wash their hands off. They have no responsibility, and it's up to us as a Canadian to clean it up for them. Or most of the time, they were sending to go to secure landfill in Ontario. Any secure landfill, we all know it's have a lifetime of 20 years maximum. After 20 years, you will have to dig it out to realign it again. And who is going to pay that? It's going to be us. You cannot go back to the American owners. So we form a group of professionals to redraft the environmental law in Ontario to ensure this contaminated soil does not cross the border unless it is coming for a designated cleanup facility, not to go anymore to a landfilling. So that's what we have decided. We put together that group. We redrafted the terms of the Ministry of Environment. And they passed it on. And the Ministry of Ontario has immediately amended their regulation and followed up by Quebec province. And we were able to ensure that no contaminated soil will come to Canada, and we taxpayer has to clean it on their behalf. That was actually one of the best things we have done for Canada.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's good. I know I've been on projects that the contaminated soil was the other way, had gone to US, but of course to a designated facility. And as far as Oregon from British Columbia, so I guess they don't have the same rules, or I guess if it goes to a designated contaminated facilities is okay. It's just crazy the amount of trucking that some of the companies have to pay for to get rid of the contaminated soil, because there are only a limited number of sites depending on the level of contamination that you can go to. So, which is very interesting. I'm very excited to learn more about our next speaker next month that is going to talk about washing and reusing all the components of the soil after it's, they've cleaned the contaminated, which is great because mostly the traditional way as the soil is not useful anymore.
I can add something about that question of yours or inquiry. Under NAFTA agreement between
Mhm.
United States and Canada, there is some soil can go across the border. We in Canada, being extremely clean, and we have the highest standard in soil cleanup, we do have all the technology and we have all the professional how to do it. It depends. I'm not sure. It's like for garbage. I know that garbage goes across the border, but I don't believe the contaminated soil would go from Canada to United States unless some of the regulation has been changed with the Ministry of Environment. I've been out for quite a while. I've been focused the last 10 years on bioenergy.
Mhm.
So regulation constantly change, and of course it depends from a province to a province. Um, so that could be one of the reasons you have heard about it, about some movement. I'm not sure if it was just municipal waste or it was as well soil.
I think it was soil, but I'm not sure why it had to go there. And this was also a while ago. So
Oh, okay.
again, it could have changed.
Would you remember by any chance how long that would be?
Um, I think at least 5 years ago, 5, 6 years ago.
Anyway, trucking, I would not, trucking it becomes very costly at the moment. I agree with you,
Mm-hmm.
trucking, but it comes to a point sometimes you cannot leave the site contaminated because it represents a huge effect on human and our, if it leads to our groundwater, it would not be the best idea to leave it on the ground. So trucking is essential in all treatment too.
Yeah.
Unless you have a type of, there is many type of treatment. You can move the technology to the site and you can do the treatment in situ, what we call it. But most of them, they would rather see the soil off the site. They have a total clean site and they can start their operation or their production.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, thank you so much.
Thank
I'm not sure if anybody else has any questions. Do we have any questions on the chat?
No, thank you both. I've just checked the chat, and most of the questions has already been covered. So we had a question about the what happens to moving soil between borders that was already covered, and how to pick the type of treatment, and that was also covered. So I don't see any new questions coming in. Anyone? Last chance. Anyone has any questions?
However, I would like to add one thing that definitely everybody care about environment have to speak up and show initiative with the government. The government are here to listen to us, to know. They cannot be everywhere. We are in the field. We see it. We know what's going on. We can share it with the Ministry of Environment, and then they can help us out to go through either across the border or within our province. But anyway, I would like to say thank you, Mana and Huaida, and all the audience for listening to me today. It was truly a pleasure being here. It brought to me all our activity for the last few decades. And have a great evening to all. And I know that some people sometimes they are on the webinar, they are kind of shy to ask questions. So if you do have any other question, please send it to Huaida and she can forward it to me later on and I will be more than happy to address it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sonia. These are great tips, and thank you for walking us through the implications of contaminated soil, how to determine the level of contamination, and what are the different contamination cleanup options and best practices. And exactly, just like you said, that the government is here to help us. So we'll have to keep an eye on our sites and share our lessons learned and pinpoint items that we think could need attention. After all, it's our tax dollars that's being put to use, and and we do have a say. And on that note, I'd like to invite you again to come and join us next month as we dive deeper and learn more about soil washing technology. Our guest speaker will be from a global remediation technology company on Vancouver Island, and they're going to walk us through some of the details of what happens to soil when it reaches their facilities. How do they wash it, and how does this soil get to be reused? Because after all, our main goal here is to eliminate waste and also encourage the reuse of material. And once again, I'd like to invite you, if you would like to be a speaker, to make your voice heard. So we'd also love to hear your lessons learned, your case studies about how you're dealing with the contaminated soil or what you're doing to eliminate waste and also encourage the reuse of material. Thank you all once again, and we'll see you on the next webinar. Have a great day.